Welcome. I'm Danny Luedke with the Dragon Company. Today we're going to talk about smart contracts and how to create your first smart contract on a Dragonchain private L1 business node. Now, smart contracts are software or programs that are stored and executed on a blockchain. In other words, it's code that lives and runs on chain with cryptographic integrity to provide a deterministic output. Um, Dragonchain builds our smart contracts on top of containers using Docker containers. By using Docker containers, it allows us to support a variety or any language out there, which lets us tap into all the developers out there, not just developers that are specifically learned how to use like Solidity or other custom smart contract languages. It lets them use modern development practices and is much easier to develop. It helps us develop really fast and provides the flexibility. Now, to do this, we're going to load a Python smart contract into Dragonchain on our L1 node. To do this, what we're going to do is we're going to clone the Dragonchain smart contract template repository. We're going to create a Docker Hub repository to allow us to store and save and pull images from. We're going to build a Docker image. We're going to push that to the Docker Hub, and then we're going to use the DCTL tool to pull the Docker image from Docker Hub and create a smart contract from that image. So before we begin, you should be familiar with the Dragonchain DCTL tool. If you're not familiar with it, you can go to the Dragonchain YouTube channel, and there's a video called Dragonchain Command Line Utility Tool, a DCTL tool walkthrough by Danny. It's a 15-minute video that will walk you through your creating a private L1 business node on Dragonchain. It'll talk about how to set up the credentials, create a transaction type, conduct a transaction, and then query those transactions. So if you haven't done that, I highly suggest you do that before starting this tutorial. Now let's go ahead and get started. So to begin with, we're going to go ahead and pull down the smart contract template. So if you go to the github.com/Dragonchain, you can see this repository called Smart Contract Templates. So let's go ahead and look at this. And when we click on this, we can go ahead and click the clone or download button. We'll go ahead and copy that over to our clipboard. And let's go ahead and open up a command prompt. And let's go ahead and change to our source directory. And we're going to go ahead and pull the templates from the GitHub repository. And to do that, we'll go ahead and use Git. If you don't have Git, you can install Git through any number of tools, Git downloads. So you can get any number of Git downloads for Git for Windows to be able to use the command line. We'll go ahead and do git space clone, and let's go ahead and paste in the smart contracts template.git, and we'll go ahead and hit enter. This will connect into the GitHub and pull the source code down into our box. So if we go ahead and change directories into the smart contract templates directory, we can list the files here, do a dir, and we'll see a number of different languages that Dragonchain can support with our templates. We have Python, Node.js, Golang, C, C#, C++, even Bash. So you can see that we support a number of different languages and provide a number of different templates. Before we continue on, we need to install the Python SDK for Dragonchain. To do that, we need to have Python. We want to have Python, at least Python 3. So let's go ahead and type Python, -v, maybe capital V. This should tell us our version. In this case, I have Python 2.79. Now, I need Python 3, so what we're going to do is change to our home directory. And I've installed a tool called Virtual Environment that's available with pip. So let's go ahead and change to Dragon v-env, and then in here there's a folder, a directory called scripts, and in the scripts directory there's a script called activate, and activate will change my environment variables to match the Dragon configuration that I have set up. So now once I run activate, you can see here I can type Python -v, and previously when it said 2.7, now it says 3.7, which is fantastic. So I'm all ready to go. Now, if you didn't have Python installed, you could go to python.org and go to the downloads. There's different variations for Windows, Linux, Macs, and so forth on there. That will walk you through the Python install. We need 3.x. To install more stuff, you need to get pip. Pip is a package installer. You can download the getpip.py file from pip.pypa.io. And then once you have the getpip.py file, you can run python space getpip.py. And that will install pip. If you're looking for the virtual environment install, it's as simple as installing Python, installing pip, and then typing pip space install space virtual env, and this will install your Python virtual environment. So let's go ahead and get started again, back on the scripts. And so now that I have the Python SDK installed on my box, I need to have a Docker repository or Docker hub in which I can push my files through. So if you don't already have Docker installed on your box, you can install Docker desktop. Go to docker.com, install it for either a Mac or a Windows, and go through that install. You'll need to provision a user within Docker Hub to create a repository. In this case, I have my super happy Dragon Lucky user, so I went ahead and created that user already. And now we need to create a repository that we can push the images to, the containers to. So let's go ahead and click on repositories. And you can see here that because I have a new Docker Hub account, I don't have any repositories. I can go ahead and click here to create a new repository. It has under my username, Super Happy Dragon Lucky Danny. And I can go ahead and type in a name for my repository. In this case, let's go ahead and just call it Python -smart. And this will be for my Python smart contract on Dragonchain. I'm going to create a public repository. You can create a private repository, but we need to be able to pass the repository credentials through, and you'll need to convert those over into a base64, which is a few extra steps. We'll walk through in a different video on how to create a private repository. But for now, let's go ahead and just do a public repository. Let's go ahead and create this. And we can see that it's been created. There's no tags, there's no descriptions. I've never had a push to this repository. So it's just an empty repository. So let's go ahead and go back to the command line, and let's go ahead and switch to the source, the smart contract templates, and let's go ahead and switch to the node contract. In here, you can see that there's a number of different files. We're actually not going to do node. I made a mistake. We're actually going to go to Python. Let's go ahead and go to Python contract. And in here, we can see that there's a number of files. There's a Docker file. There's an index.py. So these are the files that you need to be able to create an image. So we've never created an image on my local box for this repository, and so we need to build that. So we'll go ahead and type Docker. Remember, if you haven't had it installed, you'll need to install Docker. Docker build Docker build, and Docker build minus T for tag. When you do a Docker build minus T for tag, we're going to type in our username, Super Happy Dragon Lucky Danny. And then we're going to type in the name of the repository that I just entered in, which is python-smart. And it needs a tag name. Tag name is like a version or edition, so let's just call it latest. And it needs a directory of where to build the files. I'm in my Python contract directory, which is the contract I want to create. So I'll just hit dot to indicate my local directory, and I'll hit enter. This goes ahead and builds my Docker image, my container for that I can push up to my Docker hub. So it took the source code from GitHub, it compiled it and put it into a container, it built it into a container, and now it pushed it up to Docker Hub. Or it hasn't pushed it to Docker Hub, it created it locally, and now I need to push it up to Docker Hub. So let's go ahead and do Docker space push. And I have on my local box the Super Happy Dragon Lucky Danny and Python dash smart, and the tag name is latest. And by default, it's going to go to the dockerhub.io as the repository. You can always create your own repositories if you wanted your own private repositories, or you can subscribe to private repositories on Docker Hub. Let's go ahead and hit enter. And it's going to push these solutions through. It looks like I'm going to have some, it's having some problems pushing these through. It's going to time out and tell me that I haven't authenticated correctly to that solution, to my Docker Hub. So to authenticate, I'm going to type Docker space login. I'm going to type -u for my user, Super Happy Dragon Lucky Danny, and it's going to prompt me for my password. I enter that in, and it succeeded. So now if I go back and do the Docker push Super Happy Dragon Lucky Danny / Python latest edition, I push it, and you can see that it's pushing it up to Docker Hub now. So if I wanted to test this out, I could actually execute the script itself from Docker Hub on my own box, and I do that with a command called docker run. So now that it's completed, let's go ahead and use that Docker run to test it out. Docker run space and Super Happy Dragon Lucky Danny. The repository name is python-smart with the tag of latest. And let's go ahead and echo some input, and let's pipe that into the Docker. So go ahead and hit enter, and it looks like it ran, but I didn't get anything back. So Dragon. Oh, I need to pass the Python for the how to execute it, and then the name of the file that I need to run, which is Python, and then the index.py. Otherwise, it doesn't know what to execute when I run those when I pass those inputs into the Docker. So now I can see that I get some requests back, some information back from it. So I can go ahead and see that it's passing the variables through, and that it's running now. So what I want to do now is take the container that I've pushed to the Docker Hub, and I want to take that, and I want to use the DCTL, the command line tool, and I want to go get that smart contract or that image container, and I want to turn it into a smart contract on top of Dragonchain. And to do that, we'll use the DCTLT tool, DCTLT, and remember we have the status, so we can see that I'm connected in correctly. If you don't know how to get connected into it, watch the DCTLT getting started video. It'll walk you through that process. And so now if I do a DCTL contract create, I can do a help to list all the variables on here. In here, when I create a contract, it also creates a new transaction type. So in this case, let's go ahead and call this Python DRGN as a type. Let's just do Python-DRGN as a type. And let's go ahead and give it an image name. The image will be Super Happy Dragon Lucky Danny in the repository Python-smart, and the tag is latest, so it knows which one to pull. And it needs a command, what to execute on the Docker container. In this case, we'll be running Python, where we're going to run Python, and it needs to know where to get started. So let's go ahead and type index.py. And if there's any other variables that we want to submit, we can go ahead and do that right now. But in this case, let's just go ahead and hit enter, and this will create our contract and pull it from the Docker Hub. So let's go give it a try. So we can see here, we got a 202 back. We can see transaction type Python-Dragon, and we can see that the status is pending, right? Because on blockchain, it takes some time for transactions to commit. So what we want to be able to do is we'll do a DCTL contract get. And let's take a look at this contract ID, this 382AC. And we'll paste that in there. And now what we can see is that the contract was created successful, and it's an active smart contract. So this smart contract, 382, has some internal IDs, some keys, and some auth. And you can see it runs the Python command with an argument of index.py. And it's true that it was successful. And so now I'm ready to submit a transaction to this new smart contract. So to do that, I just create a transaction type, a transaction DCTL transaction create. And the type is Python-DRGN. Remember the one that we created when the transaction type we created when we created the smart contract. And what we can do is pass some variables through to the contract. So let's go ahead and just type in some info, and we can go ahead and just put it in curly brackets. And let's see, I think we are good to go there. Let's go ahead and hit enter. And we got a status of 201. We have a transaction, and it was successfully submitted. So let's go ahead and do a transaction get. So DCTL transaction get. And we're going to go ahead and get the transaction ID that was just submitted. And I can see I got a 200. I got the transaction type is a Python-Dragon. It tells me my chain, my block ID, my timestamp, any information. And you can see my payload of some information there. But it doesn't give me any results of what happened. It just shows me what I submitted to the smart contract itself. Now let's take a look at the smart contract. So if I type DCTL transaction query, let's go ahead and query Python-DRGN, and let's go ahead and query this transaction ID that we got. And it's going to send back a bunch of information back. So we can see there is a smart contract at rest with a version of Python with the status of creation success. You can see the image of where it pulled from the Docker Hub. You can see all of the information regarding the environment variables, even the executions that it needs to be able to run. Now, on the next information, you can see here we have let's see here. We're missing the invoker, so I queried that wrong. So let's see. Let's go ahead and do let's do a contract, DCTL contract ls. This will list all my contracts. There's only one contract on here, which is the Python-smart. But if I do DCTL contract get, and I do this contract, let's see. I can see more information. But this still didn't return back the payload that I had in there originally on the transaction. So let me try one more query. Let's do transaction query. The type is Python drgn, and let's go ahead and just query Python. Sorry. There we go. So now you can see I submitted a payload of a transaction with the invocator, with the transaction for the invocator, with the payload and the raw response. This would be the standard output from the smart contract. So you can see here was the from the index.python script. You can see that it's hello from responding back, but it also responds back with the some info of the data that we passed. So you can see it's combining the solutions together and gives you a result on chain, so you can prove that it happened at any point. Now, that's all there is to creating a smart contract on Dragonchain. We can do the exact same thing with different languages. We can do that with Node.js. We can do that with C, C#, even Bash. So you know, it's really simple to get started on Dragonchain and a lot of flexibility. It's just really standard in, standard outs for building our smart contracts. And if you can do a basic, if you can do anything in a development environment, you should just be able to load it into a Docker environment and get started. So again, thank you for your time. And please, if you have any questions, reach out to us. If you're a developer, reach out to us on our Slack channel. That's what we're there for. Thank you.